Hello, and welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are going to get a little bit existential.
Oh, maybe a lot existential.
Yeah, a lot. Existential is probably more accurate.
Yeah.
I want you, the listener, to take a second and think about, will you,
Right.
not your body, not your job, not your coffee order. I'm talking about the thing that is listening to my voice right now. The observer behind your eyes.
That feels like it's driving the bus.
Exactly. The driver. And the big question we're tackling today is, where did that I actually come from?
It's the ultimate question, isn't it? The hard problem of consciousness.
It really is. And to be clear, I don't mean where do babies come from, because, we all took high school biology.
Oh, silly.
Right. I mean, did your mind, your specific consciousness, just drop from the sky like some sort of spiritual paratrooper? Or is this something strictly biological that's hiding somewhere deep inside your cells?
It's the classic showdown, really. Stardust versus biology.
Stardust versus biology. I like that. And to help us navigate this, we are diving deep into a fascinating text called The Mental Unity of Existence. Specifically, we're looking at a chapter titled The Source of Minds and Their Resources.
By Abdul-Jabbar Al-Waily.
Yes, Al-Waily. And he has some serious beef with the classical philosophers here. He's taking on the heavyweights, Plato, Avicenna, Leibniz, and he is proposing a theory that is surprisingly, hierarchical.
Extremely hierarchical. Al-Waily is really trying to bridge this massive gap between ancient philosophy and modern biological reality.
Right.
He argues that we aren't these visitors from a spiritual realm. Instead, he claims that science, heredity, and just basic logic prove that the mind comes from specific, what he calls, mental particles hidden deep within human biology.
Mental particles. Sounds a bit like a sci-fi concept, doesn't it?
It does, but he is dead serious about the mechanics of it.
He is. So our mission for this deep dive is to explore this clash. We're going to look at the descending from above team versus the rising from within team. And we're going to try to wrap our heads around the idea that you listening, are basically a microscopic particle that got a massive promotion.
That is a great way to frame it. Literally the promotion of a lifetime.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Before we get to the particles and the biology, I feel like we have to understand the status quo.
The philosophical baseline.
Exactly. If I walked up to a philosopher 1,000 years ago and asked, hey, where did my mind come from? What's the standard answer?
Well, if you asked Ibn Sina, who the West typically knows as Avicenna, he would give you a very vertical answer.
Vertical meaning top down.
Right. He believed in something called the active intellect.
Which sounds like a very expensive piece of enterprise software.
In a way, it acts exactly like a universal server. Ibn Sina believed that human souls are essentially stored in this higher realm, this active intellect. They don't exist in the body initially at all.
Okay, so they're separate.
Completely. They descend or attach to the body only when the human embryo is physically ready to receive them.
Oh, I see. So the body is just the hardware.
Yeah.
And it has to be built first on the assembly line.
Yep.
And then the soul OS gets downloaded from the cloud.
Precisely. And the key takeaway here is that the soul is entirely external to the biology. It's just visiting the body. And when you die, it returns to that realm. It's basically a temporary tenant.
A tenant in the meat suit. And then, of course, you have Plato. I feel like you just can't have a philosophy debate without Plato showing up at some point.
You really can. He's unavoidable. And Plato takes this idea even further back. He believed the soul existed long before the body in something called the world of forms.
The world of forms. That's the place of perfect ideals, right? Where the perfect version of justice and beauty and, like, a perfect triangle exists.
And the perfect version of a bagel, presumably.
One can only hope.
Right. But Plato argued that the soul lives there in this realm, knowing absolutely everything. It's in a state of perfect knowledge. Then it gets trapped in a physical body. And this is the wild part. Plato says the actual trauma of being born into the physical world makes the soul forget everything it knew.
The trauma of birth causes total amnesia.
Exactly. So for Plato, learning isn't actually discovering new things at all. It's anamnesis.
It's remembering.
Yes, it's remembering what you forgot. When you solve a math problem, you aren't learning it. You're just recalling it from your time in the world of forms.
That is such a romantic idea. I mean, it makes us all feel like these fallen angels with secret knowledge. But this is exactly where our author, Al-Waily, steps in and basically slams his hand on the desk and says, objection.
He absolutely does. He's not buying the skydrop theory for a second.
Why not, though? Is it just because he prefers biological explanations?
It's not just a preference. It's based on observation. He leans really heavily on the laws of heredity.
Okay, heredity.
Right. And this is where the skydrop theory hits a massive brick wall. Think about it. If your soul comes from a generic, perfect world of forms or a universal active intellect, why are you so specific?
Specific in what way? Like my eye color.
No, specific in your mind. Your temperament. Your predispositions. The author asks a really basic question. If the soul is a fresh download from heaven, why do children inherit their parents' bad tempers? Or their anxiety? Or their musical talent?
Oh, wow. That is a really good point.
Right.
If I'm a brand new soul, straight from the factory of perfection, I shouldn't come preloaded with my dad's impatience.
Exactly. The author argues that the strong resemblance between parent and child, and we're talking about the mind itself, not just physical traits, suggests that the mind must come from the parent's material.
Because if the soul came from an external reservoir, heredity would just stop at the neck.
Right. Your body would look like your parents, but your mind would be a total random draw from the universe.
But we know personality is heritable. We see it every day.
We do. Therefore, he concludes, the mind must rise from the biology of the parents. It cannot descend from the sky.
So he's firmly grounding the mind in the physical stuff we inherit. But then he goes after another huge named Leibniz. Now, I remember Leibniz from calculus, and I know he was a genius, but the author seems to think his theory on souls was, well, completely logically flawed.
Yeah, Leibniz tried to find a middle ground here with a theory called pre-existence.
Pre-existence.
Right. He thought that souls are eternal, but instead of floating in the sky, they hang out in the seeds of the parents, waiting to develop.
Okay.
He essentially argued that the child's soul is a part or a slice of the parent's soul.
So not a cloud download, but more like a photocopy or a slice of the pie.
A slice is definitely the better analogy, and this is where Al-Waily brings out what we can call the slice problem. He uses strict mathematical logic to just dismantle this idea.
I do love a good logical takedown. Walk me through the slice problem.
Okay, imagine your mind, your soul, is a pizza. A whole, complete pizza.
I am right there with you.
If Leibniz is right, and your child's soul is a literal part of yours, then when you have a kid, you have to physically give them a slice of your mind.
Okay, so I have one kid, and now I'm operating with 80% of a pizza.
Right. Now imagine you have 10 kids.
I'm left with, what, just the crust?
Exactly. If the soul were a divisible substance that you pass on in pieces, parents would physically and mentally deplete every single time they reproduced.
By the time you had your third child, you'd be operating on a fraction of a soul. You'd be less conscious. You'd be, well, a zombie.
It sounds funny when you put it that way. Sorry, kids. Mom can't help with your homework. She gave away 30% of her IQ to your brother.
Right.
But it's a very serious logical proof called the depletion argument.
The depletion argument.
Yes. We observe in reality that parents do not become mentally depleted after procreation.
If anything, they get sharper. They have to.
Exactly. As they age, they often gain wisdom. Their mental capacity certainly doesn't shrink. Therefore, the child's mind cannot be a divisible slice of the parent's current mind. The math just doesn't work.
The math totally fails. And I remember the text actually brings Darwin into this, right?
Yeah, it does. The author notes that if Leibniz had lived long enough to see Darwin's theory of evolution, he would have abandoned this slice idea immediately.
Because evolution points to a single origin.
Right. He would have realized that minds, exactly like bodies, must have evolved from a single primitive source, the single cell.
Okay, so let's summarize where we are. We've ruled out the sky drop theory because of heredity.
Yep.
And we've ruled out the soul slice theory because of the zombie parent problem.
The depletion argument, right.
So what are we actually left with? This brings us to the core of the author's theory, the mental particle.
Yes, this is Al-Waily's grand alternative. He posits that the mind is an indivisible, simple particle.
Wait, hold on. I need to stop you there to clarify. A particle, like an atom. Are we talking about a physical speck of dust?
He's using particle in a biological sense here, almost like a specific type of cell or a foundational component within a cell. But the absolute key word in his theory is indivisible.
Why is indivisible so important?
Because of how you actually experience your own existence. Think about your physical body. It's highly divisible.
Right, I can cut my hair, I could lose a kidney, trim my fingernails.
Exactly. Your body is a collection of billions of individual parts. But your mind, The I that we talked about at the beginning, it feels singular.
It does. I don't feel like I am a committee of 5 different people voting on what to do. I just feel like one entity, me.
Right. And the author argues this undeniable unity of consciousness comes from the fact that your mind is physically just one single, simple particle. It's not a cloud of gas. It's a specific, localized point of origin.
Okay, I follow the logic.
Yeah.
But if I am just one singular particle, where was I before I was born?
You're in your parents. The text explains that the parents' bodies, specifically the germ cells, so the sperm and the egg, contain millions of these mental particles.
Millions. So wait, I'm walking around right now with millions of potential human minds just locked inside me.
In a sense, yes. But, and this is a crucial distinction, they are currently in a subordinate state. They are followers.
Followers. What does that mean in a biological context?
Think of your body as a kingdom. Your mind that you were talking to is the king. It is the ruling particle.
The boss.
The absolute boss. All these other millions of mental particles are just citizens or soldiers in your kingdom. They obey orders. They maintain the bodily infrastructure. They do not get to think for themselves.
So they are potential minds, but right now they are just serving as, what, liver cells?
Yeah.
Or floating in DNA.
Exactly. They are dormant in terms of consciousness, suppressed by your dominant rule. But when conception happens,
The great lottery.
when the sperm meets the egg, one specific particle, which was previously just a quiet follower in the parent's body, gets selected.
And it gets the promotion.
It gets the ultimate promotion. It moves from subject to ruler. This one particle, which was carrying the latent traits of the parent, suddenly steps into the power vacuum of the new embryo. It becomes the ruling particle of the new child. It takes total charge.
That is a wild mental image to hold on to. That I am just the one particle that happened to get the corner office. But this brings up a logistical question that I was thinking about while reading. A king needs a kingdom, right?
Right.
How does this one single particle build an entire human body? The text talks a lot about this hierarchy, doesn't it?
It does, and this is where the author brings in some really fascinating experimental biology to back up his philosophy. He references early experimental biologists named Stillett and Landurham.
Okay, what do they do?
They worked with frog eggs, classic developmental biology.
Sure.
They observed fertilized frog eggs dividing under a microscope. One cell becomes 2, 2 become 4, and so on up to the 32-cell stage.
So at 32 cells, it's just a tiny little ball of life.
Exactly, but then they interfered with it. They physically separated just one single cell from that group of 32.
And what happened? Did that one cell grow into a tiny mini frog?
No, it died. And the really crazy part is not only did the separated cell die, but the original cluster of 31 cells struggled and collapsed too.
Wait, why? If the cluster still has all the DNA, why can't it just keep growing and survive?
Because, the author argues, the hierarchy was disrupted. The cells couldn't function without the strict connection to the whole and the ruling structure.
So they literally lost their boss.
They lost the chain of command. Without the ruling particle to anchor that organization, the subordinates didn't know what to do. They lost their biological purpose.
That is fascinating. It shows the biological structure isn't just a pile of bricks that you can split in half. It's a managed organization.
Right. It's a monarchy, not a democracy. The subordinates absolutely need the ruler to exist.
But this actually brings up a paradox that I found a bit confusing when I was prepping for this deep dive.
What's that?
If my ruling particle, my conscious mind, is the boss of everything, why am I so utterly useless at running the company?
What do you mean by useless?
I mean, if I'm the king of this body, why don't I know how to heal a paper cut? I don't know how to knit bone back together. I don't know how to filter toxins out of my own blood. If I'm strictly in charge, why am I so bad at the details?
Oh, that is one of the most brilliant insights in the text, actually.
Yeah.
The author explains that the ruling particle isn't bad at it, it's just too busy.
Too busy doing what? Watching television.
Dealing with the outside world. The conscious mind, the ruler, is entirely focused on external survival, finding food, avoiding predators, socializing, navigating traffic. It simply cannot afford to be distracted by the micromanagement of cell division.
Oh, I see. So it delegates.
It delegates absolutely everything internal. The text calls this unconscious memory.
Unconscious memory.
Right. The subordinate particles, the millions that didn't become king, they still possess the blueprint or the image of the ancestors. They know exactly how to build a liver or an artery because they carry that deep ancestral memory.
So they do the plumbing.
Yes. They rebuild tissues blindly and obediently without bothering the boss.
So when I get a cut, And it just heals automatically over a few days. That's my staff handling the crisis so I don't have.
Exactly. You, the conscious mind, don't have to sit there on the couch and concentrate saying, okay, white blood cells, move to sector 4 now.
Yeah.
Fibroblasts, start knitting the skin now.
If I had to do that, I would definitely mess it up. I'd probably forget to beat my heart and just die while making a sandwich.
Right, we all would. The ruler focuses entirely on the macro while the subjects handle the micro. It is a perfect, optimized division of labor.
It really is. It totally reinforces that idea of the body as this complex automated kingdom. But I want to circle back to something we touched on a minute ago, heredity.
Sure.
We talked about how we inherit traits from the parents' material. But the author has a very specific take on why siblings can be so wildly different from each other. I mean, my brother and I have the exact same parents, the same biological soil, but we are totally different people.
And that comes right back to the lottery numbers. Remember, the parents' bodies contain millions of these mental particles.
They're a massive pool of candidates.
Right. And here's a crucial detail. These particles are not identical clones of each other.
Oh, they aren't.
No. They have different ranks or qualities. Some are higher quality, some lower. And crucially, some carry specific recessive traits from ancestors way back in the genetic line.
So they are diverse.
Very. One particle might carry your great-grandfather's musical ear, while another carries your great-grandmother's tendency to worry.
Okay, so my brother basically got a particle that was hanging out in the athletic ability department of the gene pool, and I got one from the reading and podcasting department.
Essentially, yes. The author explains that each sibling comes from a different specific particle that happened to win the promotion that day.
Wow.
Since you and your siblings started from totally different foundational particles, you have different core personalities. The king of your body is simply a completely different character than the king of his body.
That makes the lottery of birth feel even more high stakes. It's not just about getting a life. It's about which specific life you get out of millions of possibilities.
It really does. And the text gets even more specific about how these traits manifest, particularly with gender. This part was quite surprising because it maps so closely to modern biology, even though the terminology he uses is a bit older.
Yeah, he talks about the sperm and egg in a way that sounds very chromosomal.
He does. He argues that the sperm determines the gender of the child. He claims that sperm particles can carry either male or female traits, while the egg primarily carries female traits.
Which mirrors the X and Y chromosome logic perfectly. The sperm brings the variable.
Exactly. The interaction between the two determines the ultimate sex of the ruling particle. It shows that the author was really trying hard to synthesize the hard science of his time with this overarching philosophical framework.
Right, he wasn't just sitting in an armchair making things up.
Not at all. He was looking at the biological data, the experiments, heredity, and trying to logically fit the origin of the soul into it.
It is incredibly impressive how he weaves it all together. He's got the strict logic of the slice problem, the biology of the frog eggs, the hierarchy of the kingdom, all working inside this single cohesive system.
It's a remarkably unified worldview. And it solves the problem of where did I come from without ever needing a magical drop from the sky.
Right.
It says, look, you came from the unbroken chain of material life. You were a sleeping particle in your father or mother, and they were a sleeping particle in their parents, going all the way back to the very first cell.
And that ruling particle is essentially just the baton being passed in a biological relay race that's been running for millions of years.
Exactly. You just happen to be the current runner holding the baton.
So let's bring this all home for the listener.
Yeah.
We started this deep dive by asking where you come from.
The hard problem.
Right. And according to the mental unity of existence, you are not a visitor from the world of forms who forgot everything.
No.
You aren't a sliced up piece of your parents' soul that turned them into zombies. You are a survivor. You are the specific, ancient particle that won the ultimate lottery, got the promotion to king, and is now sitting firmly in the driver's seat of this incredibly complex biological machine.
Then really internalizing that perspective changes how you view your own body. You realize your mind is a dictator, hopefully a benevolent one of an entire biological kingdom.
A benevolent dictator, I like that.
You absolutely rely on the blind obedience of billions of subordinate cells to keep your heart beating and your neurons firing while you go about your day. You are the captain of a very, very crowded ship.
It really does make you feel a bit more connected to your physical self, but also, honestly, a little bit terrified of the responsibility of keeping it all running.
A little bit, yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure for one particle.
It is. Well, here's a final provocative thought I want to leave you, the listener, with today. And this one might honestly keep you up at night.
Oh.
We talked a lot today about how the ruling particle gets promoted from the millions of subordinates. That implies that inside your body right now, in your liver, your heart, your skin, there are millions of other particles that didn't get the job.
Oh, that is a haunting thought.
Right. If your conscious mind is just the one particle that got promoted, what kind of potential is locked away in the millions of other particles currently serving as your thumb or your spleen?
Are they sleeping minds?
Exactly. If things had gone just slightly differently in the lottery of conception, could your liver cell have been you?
It raises the huge question of what potential really means in the universe. Are we just walking around surrounded by a sleeping consciousness, waiting for a vacancy that will never come?
Definitely something to mull over the next time you look in the mirror. You are looking at a kingdom and you are the king, but the castle is entirely made of your subjects. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
See you next time.
See you in the next deep dive.